Great. We're live on YouTube as well. Great. So when we started out, we looked at number one, which is the vision. And the vision, we're talking about your goals, your dreams. We're live on YouTube as well. And how certain you are regarding your ability to achieve your goals. So that was the certainty score. And then we looked at revenue and methods in which you increase your margin in a crowded marketplace, finding the right customers for your business, understanding and reducing costs. Then we looked at the product. How do you create value? How do you take customers through the value ladder? And we looked at the value formula, how you create and stack up the formula, you stack up value and create amazing offers, what we call Godfather offers, Grand Slam offers, which people find hard to refuse. Then we also looked at market, which is looking at the importance of having a big market and describing your ideal customer profile. And with Lelemba, we looked at execution and team and accountability. And then tomorrow we'll look at sales and marketing. And then now with Sarah, we'll look at all these different pieces, the different pieces of this put together. And thank you very much, Sarah, for joining us. Sarah is joining us from Montana, USA. So Sarah is the CEO and founder of Enigma Ventures. So she's the managing partner at Enigma Ventures, which is a $100 million fund that invests in women entrepreneurs, women businesses in Southern Africa. And now we're looking at East Africa. And Sarah has got lots of experience with scaling businesses. So growing a business from scratch and exiting at $100 million, which is super, super, super impressive. And Sarah is joining us very early from Montana. Hello, Sarah. How are you doing?
Good morning, Sandras. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. Good morning. Excellent. Tell us, what time is it for you right now?
It is still dark, but it's coming up for almost 8 o'clock in the morning, just after 8:06.
Fantastic. For us, it's end of day, and it's almost dark here in Kigali. It's 5 in the afternoon.
Darkness all round.
That's right. That's right. So, Sarah, tell us about, first of all, starting with the importance of, if you want to scale your business, you want to grow your business, maybe starting with the importance of actually building a big business.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you're starting out, part of the challenges, and I love the way you've titled this week-long session, Sandras, with, you know, how to scale your business whilst getting back some time, because really scaling a business is all about managing your time. And when you're starting a business, there are so many things you could do, you want to do, lots of crazy ideas. There's this opportunity, there's this opportunity. There's so much, you know, going on. I think one of the biggest challenges for actually growing businesses is the challenge of being focused. And so how do you narrow your vision down enough, whilst not, you know, scaling down how big you're thinking, but how do you focus your energy to actually execute, to create building blocks for you actually to build and move forward? Because what we see a lot of, and I'm an investor today, we end up seeing a lot of companies that build like this. So you build sideways. So you end up with a building block over here and another nice piece over here. Maybe they go together, maybe you've got a few in the middle, maybe they don't go together, but you've got lots of pieces. And we don't actually build on top of each other to get some growth. And if you don't build on top of each other, if you don't build your foundations and then focus, it's really hard to get any scale and really hard to get any lift off. And that's the small business challenge is, can you do around you, or do you actually build something of some significance and of some scale? So that's probably the first thing I'd say is the greatest challenge for small businesses, particularly businesses who want to scale, is how do you focus? How do you know what to focus on? And how do you narrow your focus so you can actually execute?
Fantastic. And talking about, I will come back to the execution piece. Tell us about the importance of belief, because for me, initially, when I was interviewing founders, so with the Startup Grind, I've interviewed over 100 founders. And the question that we'd get most of the times is like, did you think this would work? Especially if a founder is working on something that suddenly is game changing. And the common answer I find was that the answer was yes, but it was almost like you're being arrogant. But on the other side is like, if they didn't believe, they would have stopped. They wouldn't have pursued it. But tell us about that importance, and you also in your experience, I know that there are moments when you don't believe, but the importance of having that belief.
Yeah, it's a fascinating one, because part of the challenge of being an entrepreneur is that you can see things that other people cannot. You've got a vision for something that other people haven't. It's because it's an opportunity. Other people haven't seen it yet. And so often you're out on a limb, right? And you're on your own. And entrepreneurship is very lonely, which is why platforms and communities like Pranary are so valuable, because you can surround yourself with other people on similar kind of journeys to you. But I know the challenge that we call it the roller coaster. I call it the roller coaster because you have moments where you're on huge highs, and then there are moments when you're on huge lows and nothing's working and nobody's getting it and nobody's believing. And so I think it's not a linear line. If someone had asked me in our very early years, would you think you could sell this company for $100 million? I'd have probably said no. I'd have probably said, are you out of your mind? It's just so far removed. But what I did have was just this innate belief and determination, I think, that we had something that was really special. We had something that no one else had. We were doing something that no one else was doing. We were definitely breaking new ground, and we were pioneering away. And I know particularly through sort of the eras of trying to raise capital for our idea and put more money into the business, getting raising was horrible. I hated it. I still hate it. I still hate raising money, and I'm an investor now myself. So it's hard. It's really hard convincing people to see what you see and to believe what might be possible, especially when you've just got an inkling. All most of us have is the possibility of, I think I've got something. I think this could be this. It could be this. But there's a massive gap between the beginning of that journey and the end, right? And so I think keeping the spirit alive in yourself somehow, some way, when there's a lot of naysayers or a lot of people who are not getting it, or you're not getting the traction that you think you should be getting, because that's also another problem, right? You think you've got a great idea, but people aren't buying it. And it takes a lot of adjustment. It takes a lot of pivoting. It takes a lot of listening. It takes a lot of humility to build something great, because you have to fail a lot. You have to test things. You have to pivot. You have to adjust. You have to cope with things that didn't go with the way To adjust. You have to cope with things that didn't go with the way you wanted them to go. So the entrepreneurial journey is really a journey that requires a lot of resilience. So the bigger question for me is, how do you feed your own resilience? How do you nurture yourself to be resilient, to manage the roller coaster, to recognize it is a roller coaster, to get to points on the journey and take a breath and look at the view and look where you've come from and where you are now. And so there are lots of things we can do, I think, to support our own resilience and our own ability to navigate this very challenging emotional ride. And I think it affects men and women the same way. I think we all suffer from, the highs and the lows of, some wins and some losses. And so it's like, how do you keep finding the strength to keep getting up? Because ultimately, that's what makes the difference between success and failure. It's staying in the game, not giving up, even if you pivot 1,000,000 times and your final idea looks nothing like your original idea. It's like, how do you stay in the game long enough to actually achieve something great? And that's what it takes, huge amounts of resilience and staying power.
Fantastic. And what would be, what's your advice around, around execution, around the pieces that are required to really execute consistently and to deliver on your results? If you said, I want to hit this target, I want to do this.
Yeah. So the great way to think about execution is to break it down into bite-sized chunks. So whenever we have big goals, right, big goals need to become little goals. So I think the best way for any business to think is annually and quarterly. So you think about what can we achieve? What really are we shooting to do in this year? What do we really want the outcomes of this year to be? So you have, if you're thinking about, well, in 5 years, 6 years, 7 years time, I want to be a company worth $100 million, for example, or even $10 million. How do you then go, all right, 5 years time, that means I've got to be having X number of customers, X number of sales, we've got to be in X market, break it down. And then bring that back to today, right? So if I want to be there in 5 or 6 years' time, what do we have to do this year? And then again, break it down even more. What if I'm going to try and make that happen? If I'm trying to acquire 1,000 users for my new platform in my first year, what do I have to do this quarter? And honestly, the companies who have built big companies have executed quarter over quarter over quarter over quarter, consistently said, this is what we've got to do in this quarter. So a quarter is 3 months long, right? It's not a long period of time. It disappears in a flash. And you may or may not be surprised to know how many people cannot execute a single thing in 1 quarter. And so can you get clear at the outside of the quarter? We need to have done X, Y, and Z, and you can determine what that is based on your bigger goals. We should have so many customers, or we should have this user interface working, or we should have done, there's so many different things. But and then what are we going to do to make that happen? And how are we going to focus our energy on those 2 or 3 things? And it doesn't need to be more than 3 things, 3 or 4 things tops, right? Nobody can have more than 3 or 4 big initiatives and actually make them happen in 3 months. So pick your most important initiatives to get done in 3 months. This is what we call focus. This is focus, right? Really narrow it down and don't let yourself get distracted so you can actually do it. I was sitting in a meeting with a large group of entrepreneurs just a few days ago, and the question that was asked was, what happens if you miss your goals for the year? And I was like, well, nothing happens, right? But what happens when people like me want to look at you is they're going to judge your business based on what you did accomplish, not what you didn't accomplish, right? So if you missed a goal, but you achieve it 6 months later, what you've lost there is time, right? You've lost the ability to be where you could have been further on in 18 months than where you now are further. So keep thinking about it. I look at financials, I look at business plans, and I look at what have you done in the last year? What did you do the year before that? What are you going to do this year? And what you're telling me, what you can do this year, is affected by what you actually were able to do last year, which is really proving about how you can execute. Can you execute? Can you make things happen?
Great. And with that one, what method would somebody use or should use, or how do they determine which ones are the key things to focus on? Because entrepreneurs got like long to-do list and feels like everything is important, and then you start spinning, and then at the end of the week, end of the quarter, end of the month, end of the quarter, nothing has really moved. What are the ways?
There's a great question. Yeah, there's a great question that I like to ask with all our portfolio companies. And we try and do this exercise every quarter. And we ask ourselves, what are the most important things, or the most strategic things we could do to move the needle towards our goals? So, and then we rank them. So first off, we might brainstorm of all the things we could possibly do to help think about achieving our goals. Say if my goals is to acquire 1,000 users, for example, I could start a digital media campaign, I could do some PR, I could do interviews on webinars. So we brainstorm all the ideas, right? What are all the things we could do? And then once you've done that, and you can do this on your own, or you can do it within your small little team. If that's 2 or 3 of you, just you, it doesn't matter. Just brain dump, get everything down you could be doing, and then rank the ideas. So when you look at them all, what seems to be the most important thing to do first, and rank them. So list them all down from 1. If you've got 20 ideas, rank them from 1 to 20. And then look at those top 3 and think, are any of my 4, 5, and 6, do I still think 1, 2, and 3 are the best focused ideas for focusing on in these 3 months? And get some feedback. Ideally, you've got some advisors or some mentors to say, what do you think? I think these are the most important things I should be working on in the next 3 months, because I'm trying to achieve this year. How does that sound to you? And then go after those things like your life depends upon it. I think that's the other thing we can do, is we can decide on our top initiatives, and we can decide on the most, after some consultation, which we think are the biggest things that will move the needle, will move us closer to achieving our goals. And we can write them on a piece of paper and then go and do a whole lot of other things. So that's the discipline. That's the discipline. It's not just doing the exercise, but doing the exercise and then actually being disciplined enough to do something about actioning the things that you've decided are the most important, which means you need to say no to a whole lot of other crap. Because there's, again, as I said, there's so many things you can spend your time on. It's so much easier to answer emails than it is to create an active social media campaign, or be interviewed live, announcing your new product or your service. There are so many things that can distract us, and that's the discipline of entrepreneurship, is can you focus on the most important things and know what the most important things are at any moment in time.
Great. And in terms of now scaling, if we're thinking about, I've set my goal maybe to double my revenue. We all did this on day one, on Monday. Different people had different goals. Some was to double, others it's to 5x. Other people it was 10x in a specific period. What would be the key things that you would say entrepreneurs that want to scale their revenue or scale their businesses need to focus on? And just elaborate on each one of those.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the most important needle mover is driving your revenue, right? And if you're pre-revenue, tech companies sometimes can take a long time to have revenue. You can translate that into users as well. So can you onboard users or drive your revenue, which is customers using your products and services? And why this is so important is it demonstrates, A, that people want what you've got, and it starts to build the momentum of going somewhere. Because we can build all the fancy things in the world, but if no one wants to use them and no one wants them, we're not going to get anywhere. So there's often a balance with early stage companies of how much product do I build before I focus on selling. And that's a bit of a balancing act. How fancy should your app be? How fancy should your tech platform be? How well developed does it need to be before I can launch? And there has to be a point. You can't develop forever and never sell anything, right? And so how do you get to what we call in the business a minimal viable product? Sort of the basic version of what you are going to do. It doesn't necessarily have all the bells and whistles that you're going to have eventually. But how can you start selling it? How can you create something that is great enough to put out to the world, but then start focusing on driving users and driving sales and figuring out how you are going to get people to buy it. And for early stage entrepreneurs, the big race is to figure out how can I drive $1 million worth of revenue in my first 12 to 18 months, which is 15 million rand, $1 million of revenue. And that's the race you're in. Can you scale up fast enough? You don't have the luxury of thinking you can take 5 years to get to $1 million of revenue. If you want to build a big company, if you want to get funded, if you want to scale, speed is of the essence. So driving your revenue, and learning what that looks like, and how you're going to do that is a learning curve, because no one has ever done what you were doing before in quite the way that you were doing it. So there's no one fit all strategy for how you do that. There's lots of learning, lots of failure, lots of testing, lots of figuring it out, but focusing on driving users, driving revenue is one of the most important building blocks that you can have.
Fantastic. And so I totally agree. And I think it's something that can't be overemphasized in terms of speed. There is a need for speed, especially in the early stages, because investors, everybody is looking at month-to-month growth. And then if say we grew only much in this period, or we grew from here to here in 5 years, it's not as attractive compared to something that grew very fast in a short space of time, because that builds momentum.
Yeah.
And then when it comes now to existing businesses, the ones that are already doing over R1 million or over $100,000, $50,000, and they know what they're selling, they got product market fit, and that's working.
Yeah.
What are some of the things that they need then to do to accelerate their growth?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back to you've got to set your sights on where you want to get to. So if you're doing R1 million today, 2 million rand, 3 million rand, even, you're a small business, right? What does the pathway then for you look like to getting to 15 million rand, $1 million? And the way to do that is to think about how many customers would I need? How much would they be buying, or how much would they be spending with me? And where might I get them from? So I've got this today and my little pool is doing this, but how might we get there? And that's the strategic question to ask yourself. And it's different for every business, but it's a case of it's breaking it down into basic numbers. I was working with a company just a few days ago, sort of who needs to, ideally we need to get to 1,000 customers. And we started to break down where might they come from? Who are they? Where might we get them? What will it take for us to acquire them? And what will we need to spend? Who do we need to help us on the team to make that happen? So the answer, I think, Sandras, is just getting really clear on, if you know the goal, and if you know I'm here today and I want to get to here, asking yourself, where might those customers come from? What are they doing now? What do they look like? How might I acquire them and get them onboarded onto my system? What do I have to do to make that happen? And you can't keep doing the things that you have done necessarily previously. What have you got to do differently to acquire a lot more customers a lot more quickly?
Oh, great. So I think what you're saying is that they should just follow the blueprint, right?
Yes. Yes.
Brilliant. And Sarah, now talking about marketing, what are the things that entrepreneurs that are thinking about growing fast, what are the things they need to bear in mind? What are the things they need to do? And then I'll tie it later with a question around what are the common mistakes?
Okay. Yeah. I mean, to answer the sort of the common mistakes is I think people think they don't need to spend as much as they actually do. So the common mistakes that I see people making are not investing enough in marketing, not testing enough in marketing. Because what you need to do is, every business is going to have a sweet spot, right, with its marketing, and it's going to be different for everybody. But figuring out what yours is as fast as humanly possible is the name of the game. And the challenge with this is, we like to test one thing and we say, I'm going to do Google ads, or I'm going to have a Facebook campaign. And then we spend $2 a week on the Facebook campaign. I mean, it's not enough, right? And B, there's a million different ways you can advertise on Facebook, right? Does video work best? Does this photo work best? Does a live stream feed work best? What do we learn about marketing on Facebook? What are the ways that work for my business? How do I get in front of the right customers? And the reality is, you probably need to spend more on doing that than you are comfortable with. And that is one of the biggest challenges, I think, for entrepreneurs, because they want to invest in marketing that works. We all do, but are not willing to pay for marketing that doesn't work to figure out what does. And so what often happens is people don't ever figure out what does. And that is problematic. I am 100% convinced that every business that has a great product or great service or has something that really is worthy of a consumer to buy or utilize should be able to figure out a great marketing strategy, right? We should be able to get into the strip stream of catching a wave, that we figure out these are our people, these are our tribe, this is who you will use us. And but that takes time, and it takes money, and it takes effort, and it takes analysis. So I think the other problem for me with the marketing piece is that entrepreneurs think that someone else is an expert in this, that marketing people are experts at this. And marketing experts are experts at what they are experts at, which means they get good at doing a particular type of marketing. I've yet to meet a marketing agency that's good at everything. You know, there's no such thing as an agency that's great at PR, and they're great at digital, and they're great at SEO, and they're great at retargeting, and they're great at Facebook campaigns, and they're great at, you know, I mean, the TikTok campaign. I mean, it's endless, right? And so marketing people get good at pieces of the puzzle, but nobody is better at selling your product than you. Nobody will ever be as committed and as determined to figuring out what might work than you. And if you hand over the marketing of your business to someone else that is not invested in the same way you are, they will run the play that they know, right? They will run, if they're good at Facebook campaigns, they'll run a Facebook campaign for you. If they're good at SEO, they'll do great SEO for you. But not one of those things alone is not going to cut it. You've got to attack this thing from every angle. You've got to get really good at understanding what's important for SEO, what's important for Facebook, what works for you for Facebook, whether you need a webinar strategy to acquire users, whether, you know, you have to try a lot of different things and understand, oh, this worked a little bit, oh, maybe we could test this piece a little bit more, and experiment. It's like having to be a scientist. And you can't hand that over to an agency. You just can't. You have to drive it. And you can bring in people to do pieces of it, and to operate in the ways that they are experts at, but you have to own it, and you have to drive it. And especially for businesses that are still in this 1 to 3 million, I see it all the time. People just want to employ an agency to do it for them. It's not going to cut it. It's not. You've got to drive it. You've got to analyze the information, and you don't have to know anything about marketing, right? You just need to be able to read information. You need to look at Google Analytics, look at your Facebook campaigns, read the numbers as to say which ad got clicks, you can follow it through. And the more you do it, the faster you will learn. And this entrepreneurship is a journey of learning. And use the experts to help you learn and help you understand it, because then you can make great decisions about what you need to be doing in your business. When I started Under Canvas, I threw everything at the wall, everything. You know, we hosted influencers, we listed ourselves on every other website I could possibly find to create referral links. I got a ton of PR that I wrote myself, didn't have an agency. I pushed PR myself. I managed my pricing. You know, it was endless, and I didn't stop for a decade. Did not stop for a decade in trying to figure out how we optimize, how we add more users, how we acquire more followers on Facebook or Instagram. And so, you know, it's a constant experiment and a constant learning exercise that it's important that you stay number one focused on.
Fantastic. And I totally agree. And something that we're doing on Pranary, that we eat our own cooking, right? We experiment, we learn, we're applying what we're learning, and then we work with other companies, take them through that. We went through exactly what you're talking about, Sarah. And oh, by the way, everybody, Sarah is my coach. So I got a multi-million-dollar coach. And she's also your coach. All of you that are here on this call, and those of you that come into Pranary, you know that you get really good feedback from Sarah. But part of what she's talking about is something that we went through as well. And a lot of companies in the Enigma portfolio do that they raise money, and then you're afraid to spend the money. And then when things are not going well, we switch off the money that you shouldn't switch off, the marketing money, but testing things very quickly. And we had to learn that the hard way. We also had to learn that actually all the people we thought were experts were not. And they say that to a man with a hammer, everything is a nail. So you hire a guy to, can you do Facebook for us? Says, oh, okay, but why don't you do YouTube? I'll do YouTube for you. No, because that's the thing they know, and everybody just keeps doing that. And then I'll also agree with what you said, Sarah, around you need to test and seeing what works. I know John Wanamaker, like a long time ago, died in like 1922, said half of the money that I spend on advertising works and the other half doesn't work, but I don't know which half is which, right? So I think, but at least now we're fortunate that with analytics, we can see that this is working, at least this is working, but this is not working, but learning quickly and switching that off. Could you now tell us about PR? I think there's a little bit of misconception around like, what do you use PR for? What do you use Facebook digital marketing for? What should drive what? Is PR even necessary? Or should PR get us sales? Or what's the point of PR?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of PR. I love PR because PR is basically storytelling about you. Storytelling around your vision, your products, your services, your why, the difference that you're making in the world, and it's what we call a brand builder. PR is like it's like if you go into the grocery store, right? But if you've seen storytelling about, or you've seen ads for a particular brand, when you go into the grocery store, you're more likely to buy the brand that you've heard of rather than the one you've not heard of, right? And so I used PR consistently throughout building our business. And in the early days, PR was fantastic because it was basically free. Getting to people to write about you, tell your story, share your vision, puts you out there in the world. And obviously for people to buy your products, use your services, people need to know about you. So, and I think more and more, and this is why video marketing is so interesting, because we are connected to stories. Most of us don't like doing transactions for the sake of doing a transaction, right? We're less a transactional society and we're more a storytelling society. So if you tell me a story about your business, I'm much more likely to be engaged. And this is why social media works so great, right? It's about creating engagement, creating understanding, awareness around a product. And helps you fall in love with something that you then love just as much as maybe the company who puts it out there. So I love the idea of telling stories through PR. I think with PR you have to be you have to decide, what are we trying to achieve? What's the point? But usually, the big picture with PR is creating awareness. It's less direct than, something for sale on Shopify and, you click here, buy now. But it helps to create, it helps you stand out from the crowd. It helps tell your story. It helps people engage with your products and services. And it helps put you on the map. It helps sort of helps you stand out from a busy crowd. Daisy in this group, I think she's left already, but she's been on this week. She's building a tourism app, which I love, a huge fan of. But if Daisy doesn't do PR to announce her new app and tell the story around why this app exists and what it does, and create spin in the media that gets her a lot of attention, it'll be difficult to get a lot of people to use it. So marketing, PR marketing is a way about creating a lot of noise about your product. And obviously you've got to have something good to say. So announcing things is great with PR, new product, new launches, telling stories around the origins of the business, the why, the vision. If you're trying to solve a big problem, I'm trying to solve banking for, the millions of people who are unbanked in Africa. Tell the story around why this matters, why this issue is important, and how you are going to solve it. That puts you on the map, and being on the map is important.
Fantastic. And type 1, everybody, in the chat box if this is useful. Great. And also we say that if you're feeling that it's not, you can tap 0. Right? Thank you very much, Jenica. Like, this is fantastic. And also start typing your questions for Sarah that you've got. Type questions that you've got for Sarah in the chat box. Great. So Sarah, now talking about, like if you want to 10x your business, you want to grow something big, it also helps when you have that massive story that amalgamates and brings people together and drives, which also helps you can increase prices if you've got a great story as well, create a great brand and all of that. Could you dig into that?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good point, actually, Sandras, and something that I haven't thought about for a while. But actually, you're quite right. Building a brand is a very powerful thing for commanding a premium price. And what I mean by that, let's put it in product terms, right? But it works in every genre, right? If you are making baskets, I'm just investing in a company that makes baskets, right? Now we think, gosh, that's 2 a penny in Africa. There are street vendors who make baskets. Everyone on every corner is making baskets, and baskets not new, right? But you build a brand that is using a unique product with a unique manufacturing method that's supporting women in poverty, that's got a great story, got a great mission, and can export that into a much, much larger market, with a very strong brand recognition, with values that brand stands for. All of a sudden, you've got a consumer product that's really interesting, right? So brand building, if X company is selling baskets and selling them in a street, or even selling them in shops, is going to have less demand and less buying power than a company that's making similar but different products with a brand and selling in major retail stores. And the power of brand is really about what the company stands for, who you are, your why. And it's really, really powerful for setting you apart from all your competitors. My own company was the first in its space, right? We created glamping resorts. We took the African safari experience and recreated it outside of national parks in the US. And when I started, no one else was in our space. We really were the pioneers. But very quickly, other people were in our space and were throwing up tents in fields and, you know, creating places to stay all over the place. But today, there are, you know, out of all the thousands and thousands of people who tried to replicate my idea and do it themselves, there are like 2 or 3 household names in the space. And my company is still the biggest and largest in this space. And the difference was building a brand, a recognizable brand name that stood for something, that had consistency of product, consistency of service, and had great values. We told great stories about ourselves, about our why we're doing this and what we care about and what the customer experience is really all about. And I sold something that was bigger than our product. I sold something that was aspirational, you know, helping people thrive, helping people get out in nature, helping people connect with each other and disconnect from their technology for a while, and experience the great outdoors. And so brand building's critically important. And I had a hospitality business. It's like, it's how you stand out from the crowd. It's how you make a mark for yourself and you say, my product is worth paying $500 a night for. My product's superior because this is who we are and this is what we deliver.
Fantastic. And we've got a question now from Kinsani Paloi. So Kinsani is part of Scholar Root, or is part of Scholar Root. And the question is, how do you effectively use marketing or PR when pivoting your business?
Yeah, great question. Pivots are hard, right? But I think you can often think of a pivot as a relaunch or a new launch, right? So you can think of it in the same terms. So if your business has been selling jam, and now it's going to sell honey, right? You can relaunch yourselves with a PR campaign announcing, this is what we're doing, this is who we are, this is where we're going, this is what we're selling, and here's our why. And so I think PR is really valuable for a major pivot. I think if it's a minor pivot, i.e., you know, you're selling jam and now you're going to sell tomato jam or mango jam and you were selling strawberry jam before, it's less exciting to talk about, right? So you remember, PR is really about storytelling. So, you know, you get the best PR when you've got great stories to tell. So building businesses that have great stories to tell is really the way to get great PR. And to, you know, the things that people are interested in today, and, you know, and the media will write about, are ways in which people are tackling big problems, the ways in which people are leading in ways that other people have not led before, the change that people are you know, the change that you're trying to make in the world is important. And so I think, you know, think about what's the story I'm telling, you know, and you don't need to wait for someone else to tell you. You can know the story I'm telling. Let's take Sandras, for an example. He's trying to build a platform that enables SMEs to grow across the continent of Africa, trying to enable content and community and connection to drive the growth of SMEs. Why? Why does that matter? Because we believe that SMEs are at the heart of an economy, and that if you can grow businesses, you can grow economies. If you can grow economies, you can transform nations. And if you can transform nations, you can transform an economy, transform the continent. And that's how we lift Africa out of poverty. And that's how we help her rise. And we stop relying on other people to give us aid. And we start building our own countries and our own nations and our own continent, and saying we're as capable and we're as amazing and we have amazing people and amazing resources, and all we need is capital to help make that possible, so that we can level the playing field. And we grow, we can grow our capital, right, through our businesses. And Africa's a huge market, a huge market. And it's like, how do we lever it to grow and build great businesses that build a great continent?
Fantastic. Thanks, Sarah. I'm happy that you know our vision, you catch our vision, and our visions are actually aligned. And Enigma's vision, your personal vision, similar. Want to build the continent because businesses change people's lives. And lastly, Sarah, what would you say to the entrepreneurs? So there are a lot of entrepreneurs that are going to watch the replay because the sessions are running in the morning, but we had to put yours in the afternoon. So we already had a session this morning. But a lot of them will watch the replay. What would you say to them that's like to keep them going? What's important to always bear in mind, and also maybe tied into what you want, what you'd like to see and what you want to do as Enigma, as you?
Yeah. I'm always looking for entrepreneurs who've got some fire in their belly, right? Who believe they can take on the world, who believe that nothing's going to stop them, and they don't necessarily have all the answers, but they're going to figure it out, and they're going to be great learners. The best entrepreneurs are people who are incessant learners and incessantly don't give up, a bit like I talked about earlier. And so where there's hunger, where there's drive, I'm always super excited, because it's people with big drive, big goals, big vision, big ambition that will make big things happen. And that's what the continent needs. The continent needs people who will stand up and say, if not me, who? If I'm not going to do it, who's going to do it? How are we going to solve some of the big systemic problems? How are we going to solve the little problems in our societies? How are we going to make our lives better? How are we going to make lives better for people who look like us, who don't look like us, who have the same economic socio-economic background, who have different socio-economic backgrounds? How are we going to build a better world? And I think, you know, you have to keep your passion alive. You have to keep your dreams alive, but you've also got to take your dreams and make them reality. The world needs dreamers, but even more than dreamers, the world needs executors. And so take your dreams and execute them, and don't stand for anything less. If you can see it, if you can imagine it, you can build it, right? And that's the fallacy, I think. If the hard part is dreaming it in the first place, and there's only a certain subsect of society that can dream. Not everyone is cut out for being an entrepreneur, right? But here's the thing. If you can dream it, you can build it. You don't need to be an expert today. You don't need to know everything there is to know about marketing. You don't know everything. I knew nothing about hospitality, right? Nothing. I didn't go to hospitality school. I didn't know anything about how to run a business. I had no clue, nothing, right? So don't underrate yourself. Don't count yourself out, but just know that if you've got an inkling, if you've got this something in you that says, I think this is a thing, I think we could build this, I think this could happen. If you can see it, you can build it. And it's just a case of breaking it down and learning as fast as you can about everything there is to know about how to make that happen. So be encouraged, folks. I am so excited by what we're seeing on the continent and the ideas and the pitches that we are hearing. And I so believe that you are the solution to Africa's economic crisis and social crisis, and that together we can make an impact, we can make a difference, and we can make incredibly amazing, huge things happen. So don't give up, folks. Go the distance. There's a lovely quote from a Kevin Costner movie that's called The Field of Dreams. He says, if you build it, they will come. So build, my friends, build it and sell it, and they will come.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Sarah. This is so amazing. I agree with Marie, like amen to that. This is so great. So type 1, everybody in the chat box, to say thank you to Sarah. This has been really, really amazing. Thank you very much, Sarah. You have a lot of knowledge, a lot of practical expertise. You got a lot of wisdom, and you're also very inspiring. You're very motivating. Thank you very much for that. And
so welcome.
Thank you.
Always great to be with our Pranary folks.
Fantastic.
Have a great evening, everybody. Thanks so much for having me.
Have a great day.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks for joining in, and just please in the chat box type your key takeaway. What has been your key takeaway from today's session? What's been your key takeaway? And then you can watch this again. We got a replay, and those of you who want to still have access to this, we have the all access pass that is available for you, and this is not going away, that you can download. So all of this knowledge, put it in a PDF, okay, and you watch the videos and you learn. Then tomorrow we tie it all together with marketing and sales. So I'll teach you some very specific things that to move you forward, and how you could accelerate that, and also not spend too much money. I mean, not waste money going into the Facebook or Google black hole. There are methods now that make your return on ad spend better. ROAS. Great. Thanks, everybody. Thank you very much. Share this with the people that are, share this with the people that you believe would benefit from this. And then if you are in Rwanda, Kigali, I'll see you tomorrow at Rwanda Build, where I'll talk about what investors look for in a startup. Great. Fantastic. Thank you very much, Christy. Thanks, Lumbu. Thanks, Jade, and the whole Pranary team. Thanks for working tirelessly this week to put this together, and producing the replays and producing the downloads and all the things that are needed. And those of you who still want to take advantage of all these specials that we've got, let us know. And this time we really, really want you to win and set yourself up for success in 2022. Fantastic. So don't miss tomorrow. Tomorrow ties it all together. And then those of you who have got the all access pass, you get a bonus session on Friday. So that session is the bonus session where you can ask your questions. You can learn about pitching. You can learn about growth. You can learn very specific techniques about how to make some of these things happen, where we get a little bit more practical. So even if you just got that Friday session for $47, that will be way more valuable to you and your business than if you missed out on this. And remember, this is live. And that's why you can see, like in the morning, I had internet issues because it was live. This is live now. I'm sitting at another hotel in Kigali. It's live. If the internet cuts, it's live. And so all of this value is live. And when we have that live session on Friday, you will miss out if you believe that you can only get that much later. It won't be the same. And this all access pass is only available now. Good. Thank you very much. Let's see. I will see you tomorrow. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.